Having only just recovered from the gargantuan task of reviewing Final Fantasy XVI, I felt that covering Dave the Diver, a seemingly innocuous game about fishing and managing a sushi restaurant, would be a comparative breeze. Unfortunately, video games are never so simple. Its complexity, nuances, numerous issues, and overwhelmingly delightful sense of charm and joy have left me with a far greater and long-winded impression than I thought I would ever have. Dave the Diver is a visual marvel, reinvigorating the pixel art aesthetic with anime-infused high-octane animations, seamlessly combining it with an eclectic range of art styles ranging from traditional Korean art to modern 3D recreations of various fish. The dynamic underwater locales you'll explore are as gorgeous as they are varied, from the sun-soaked shimmering sapphire waters with its myriad of multicolored fish effortlessly gliding by, the hauntingly gloomy depths with its eerily pitch-black caverns and fang-laden horrors. There's no shortage of atmosphere and visual splendor in Dave the Diver. Fortunately, these gorgeous visuals apply to the phenomenally charismatic cast of characters that populate the lakeside sushi bar you work for. The titular Dave's jovial design was a particular highlight for me, his dainty pork pie hat precariously resting atop his unpretentious head as he dashes from customer to customer, a smile as wide as the giant blue hole itself perpetually plastered on his face. Every character, from the ancient civilization enthusiast Dr. Bacon to the sternly dedicated chef Bancho, has been lovingly designed to perfectly complement their rich and incredibly memorable personalities. Their witty one-liners and cozy banter aside, from the moment I laid eyes on each of Dave the Diver's characters, I became immediately entranced. Additionally, the fish, which you will busy yourself with for much of Dave the Diver's lengthy runtime, have also been expertly recreated, at least to my untrained eye. Whether it's the extravagant meals you'll prep and enhance, or the fish with which you'll make them, everything looks positively appetizing, even to this dedicated vegetarian. When you're not gawking at the gorgeous visuals on display in Dave the Diver, you'll be partaking in its story. Unfortunately, this is by far the game's weakest aspect, owing to the fact that the majority of its missions follow the rigidly repetitive fetch quest formula. Primarily, Dave the Diver will see you delve deep within its watery playground in search of parts to build a new device that will allow you to further progress in the narrative. This could be a translator that lets you communicate with a mysterious ancient civilization, or a headlamp that lets you easily explore the darker underbelly of the giant blue hole. However, players must also gather the requisite fish to feed their ever-growing customer base during the latter portion of an in-game day. This is just as important as pursuing the main quest line, as it nets you with profits that you can then spend on upgrading your gear, an essential purchase as the better your gear, the more areas you can access and fish you can catch. Unfortunately, this means that you'll frequently pass up on searching for whatever item the main quest wants you to get. You're restricted on what you can bring back to the surface thanks to an initially punishing weight limit that slows your swim speed to a crawl once you become over-encumbered. This leaves you vulnerable not only to the vicious and frequently terrifying sharks, but also to reaching the surface or an escape pod before your oxygen runs out. If you do lose all of your oxygen, you'll only be able to take one of the items you collected with you. The incentive to leave as soon as you've reached your weight limit, regardless of whether or not you've located the main quest item, is incredibly high. Critically, this brings your main story progression to a screeching halt, further slowing down the already dawdling drip feed of new mechanics. This wouldn't be such a fundamental issue if the core gameplay loop of Dave the Diver was engrossing. Unfortunately, I found that the fishing mechanic lacked the necessary depth required to make it an interesting standalone activity. Admittedly, it was engrossingly entertaining for the first few hours, as discovering new fish felt novel, and the same soothing track that plays whenever you're underwater is quite catchy. However, the tedium eventually set in, and I soon felt I had seen everything the sea had to offer and upgraded my gear enough that there was little to no challenge. I quickly found myself absent-mindedly engaging in the same gameplay loop repeatedly, delving into the sea intending to pursue the dull fetch quest, but eventually surfacing without having made any meaningful progress at all. The underwater experience for much of Dave the Diver felt very reminiscent of Groundhog Day, an endlessly soporific exercise and repetition, offset only ever so slightly by a minor tweak in an area's layout, a different item to fetch, or the type of fish that I encountered. Fortunately, absolutely none of the above issues matter in the slightest, as it is all in service of Dave the Diver's more substantial and enjoyable gameplay loop, the incredibly engrossing Sushi Bar management sim. Despite only taking up one of the 3 sections of an in-game day, its individualistic and creative nature allows for a far greater sense of freedom while offering much needed context and meaning to the more shallow aspects of the game. My enjoyment of Dave the Diver's management sim gameplay loop was partially derived from its chaotic nature. Serving an overwhelming number of customers, desperately trying to rush from one to another while attempting to perfect the various minigames, is surprisingly not as stressful nor as challenging as it sounds. Frequently I found myself actually longing to return to this portion of the game so I could indulge in the micromanagement of the potentially prosperous sushi restaurant. Crucially, however, none of this would work if it weren't for the individuality that it affords the player, offering numerous ways to customize and personalize the entire experience. From the staff that works for you, to the decor that perfectly positions a sushi bar as a picturesque foreground to the striking night sky, your input into the functionality and aesthetic of the restaurant is fundamental. For example, I found myself growing attached to Leo, the incompetent sous chef who quickly became obsolete the second I put out an advertisement looking for new staff. His goofy grin and jaunty dance endeared me to him almost immediately, and I frequently hesitated to replace him with far more efficient chefs. Similarly, a piece of decor, a simple photograph of Dave, Bancho and Cobra standing by the restaurant, became a priceless fixture, an irreplaceable memory no matter how enticing the alternate unlockable decorations were. Preparing your menu for the evening is also a key aspect of the management sim portion of Dave the Diver. You can only select a handful of dishes to serve, each one varying in cost and overall diner satisfaction. Picking and choosing a balance of expensive and enjoyable meals requires a significant amount of thoughtful consideration, especially when you factor in the risk-reward nature of enhancing a meal. Each dish can be upgraded by consuming the resources required for said dish. Enhancing a meal increases its worth both financially and in terms of how enjoyable it is. You can opt to enhance a meal, but risk losing the ability to serve it that evening, potentially forcing yourself to serve cheaper meals and earning less money overall. This is the aspect of the management sim that offers meaning to the fishing component of Dave the Diver, as you're encouraged to hunt specific fish with which to enhance your meals and thus ultimately make a bigger profit. It is why the tedium of fishing has no real bearing on the overall enjoyment of Dave the Diver, as the immense satisfaction you receive from finally offering an enhanced dish to your patrons and earning a huge payout as a result is a serotonin-inducing rush that never gets old. You're constantly rewarded for your hard work and efforts, as the money you earn will go to upgrading your diving gear, getting better staff, and unlocking more dynamic decorations, all of which greatly enhance the overall experience. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the most integral aspect of Dave the Diver, the absorbingly witty cast of characters who give the game its signature charm and make the entire experience uniquely endearing in a way few games have managed to do before, is a true highlight and a genuine treasure. This charismatic and eclectic group of misfits are exceptionally memorable, owing to the fact that the writing beautifully captures their diverse and incredibly likable personalities, allowing each of them to flourish in their own unique ways through cozy, oftentimes hilarious, and occasionally raw conversations with the titular Dave. Everyone from the core trio, Dave, Bancho and Cobra, to the side characters have a lot to say and do and contribute to the central narrative as well as their own interpersonal stories in interesting and meaningful ways. Even the VIP customers, diners with specific meal requests, come with their own backstories, often intertwined with the meal they are demanding. These short side quests reminded me of the wonderfully wholesome Midnight Diner Tokyo stories and elevated the sushi restaurant aspect of Dave the Diver that much more. All of this is to say, perhaps surprisingly to some, that Dave the Diver is actually a phenomenal indie game, one that is near perfection were it not for some minor issues. Beyond the repetitive nature of some of its gameplay elements, the unfortunate slow pacing of introducing the game's many incredibly enjoyable and varied mechanics, Dave the Diver is a gorgeous and memorable experience from start to finish. Its lovable cast of characters, engrossing restaurant management gameplay, stunning visuals, and dedication to the art form of sushi cement it as a deeply unique, creative, and ultimately fulfilling video game deserving of both your time and praise. For the extremely low price of $17.99, it's hard to fault this rich and rewarding work of art. The game creator is giving Dave the Diver an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe to keep getting more great gaming content just like this.